All right, guys. So our next topic here is going to be our very late at this point. Because I mentioned this off the top. We're gonna have to do something for our Loki, reviews and discussions because our show comes out on Mondays, but Loki comes out 2 days later. So we're talking episode 1 right now. And episode 2 is gonna be out in like 2 days. It's really unfortunate timing. So we're gonna have to do something about that. We're gonna have to make a video on like Thursdays for this.
Or we're gonna have to do it on the live stream
I guess
on
we could just
Fridays,
specifically do it
and
on
then
Fridays. Yeah.
you could clip it. You could clip that
Yeah.
out, and it just wouldn't be part of the H&U episode each week.
Right.
Yeah, that'll probably be for the best. Because we do that normally anyway. We normally just kind of like sloppily talk about it on the live stream. So
Sure,
we could just make it more of a formal thing, and so we can clip it out.
sure.
That'd probably be for the best. Honestly, that was a good thought.
Yeah.
100%. But nevertheless, this show, the first thing I said to you guys in Discord was like, there's a reason why this became my most anticipated show from Disney Plus. It at first started out as Falcon Winter Soldier because Winter Soldier is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. So I was super stoked about that show when everything was announced back in that Disney press conference thing that they did. But I never really had any like huge hype for this Loki show at that point in time. I wasn't like didn't think it was a bad idea. I
See,
figured
this
it would
is
be
my.
good.
I mentioned it in another episode. This was my most anticipated show.
Well, that's the thing. When they dropped those trailers,
Then
this became my most anticipated, like out of all of them, because they dropped the trailer for WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier, and then Loki, and then I literally had to just be like, well, Loki looks way better than the other two. Like,
Yeah.
that's because not that the other trailers were bad, it just really intrigued me and just had just the look and feel of it. Just it caught me. And like the trailers for Falcon Winter Soldier, even though it started off as in concept being my most anticipated, once I saw the trailer, I was just like, okay, that's fine. Like it did nothing to really like get me going.
Right.
But the Loki one did. And needless to say, episode 1 did not disappoint. Like I thought it was amazing.
it's pretty good.
I loved everything they did, like with the timekeepers and like the just great character development for a character that we've known for 10 years already.
It was an
like-
interesting concept too, like not having the magic at like the timekeeper's place, and like we'll get into it, I'm sure, but like the whole scene with like the Tesseract and Infinity Stones and all that, like just a interesting perspective on things.
Oh no, that's what like one of the coolest, like that was one of the best moments is when he like breaks out of the little room and he goes to get his gear, and then the Tesseract from the dude who doesn't know what a fish is.
Right.
Don't even know how that's humanly possible, but
If you're not human.
yeah, but they know everything. This dude don't know what a fish is.
Hey, he spent his whole life at
Yeah.
a desk. He says it himself.
The main reason here's the thing that makes it seem less. It was obviously just there for a quick joke laugh. Like I get that, but it's also illogical based on what the show set up previously. When Loki went to go through that thing, and he thought like he questioned whether he was a robot or not because it would like melt you from the inside out. The little
Yeah.
dude who was facilitating that whole thing, he said like, "You must, or something about like, do you have what most species would consider to be a soul?" So they know what a soul is. Yeah, they definitely know what a fish is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
But either way, it was a good little laugh. It was fine. It was just conceptually like they wouldn't know what a fish is.
Yeah, you'd have to know
You
at
have
least
to
what a
know.
fish is.
You have to have some idea. But either way, that scene though was awesome because it's like in the music, dude. I was telling Rick, if anybody's ever listened to Nero, their what was that album called that I'm thinking of?
Oh, I know exactly what the cover looks like. But
Me
I don't-
too. I just can't. What was
It's a good album.
It's a
like
fantastic
Nero's
album.
main album.
Yeah, it was like their first big album. It had Promises on it and everything. But there's a song called Departure and Reaching Out. Those two songs are like
Good songs.
like the melodies that Loki the series has at like those like magnificent times, like when he looks out upon the wonder of what the TVA looks like, and he says, "I thought there's no magic here." That little synth that's playing there, and then when he's like finds the Infinity Stones and realizes that like this place is no joke. Like the Infinity Stones are paperweights here, and he's just having this internal reflection of just like, what is the meaning of life? Go listen to Departure by Nero. Because I've always thought every time I listen to that song, like that's what's going through my mind is like with that music. It's like it sounds the same. So I love the music in the show, nevertheless. But that scene was amazing just because the internal reflection. But like the craziest thing about this show is not really the craziest, but one of the coolest things what I really like is that like the best scenes was just with him and Owen Wilson just sitting down and talking. Like,
Talking.
I mean, it wasn't like some big crazy action set piece or anything stupid like that. Like it was all fun when he was, messing with the girl and making her, go through time and all those bits are fine, but like the best scenes was just two dudes sitting on a table just talking to each other. And like him going through and watching his life unfold that he hasn't experienced yet, seeing, that he was what got his mom killed and, seeing him and Thor working side by side and his dad dying and then his inevitable death by Thanos, like it was great.
Yeah, it was deep.
Like it was great, and Tom Hiddleston just knocked it out of the park. It was amazing. I can't wait. I hear episode 2 is even better than episode 1. So I'm super stoked for, a couple days from now when that comes out. I do have a question for you guys too, because there's been a lot of debate about this online, and the show kind of sets it up as one way, but inevitably also doesn't. So here's the concept though. With the TVA and the timekeepers, all right? They say that the time like in the little like thing where they introduce what the hell everything is with Miss Minutes, like little DNA from Jurassic Park, they say that like initially the world it was all multiverse and chaos and blah 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 until the timekeepers came in and streamlined and made the sacred timeline, right? And they even say at one point like something about being on your predetermined path, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, like the debate that's going on is like, is everything that happens on the sacred timeline, is it actually like predetermined? Like, is it predestination? Or did the timekeepers actually orchestrate everything
Right.
and
Like,
make
did
it
they
is what
set
it
it up?
is? Yeah. Or do people actually have free will? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it all
I mean,
Because yeah, that
predetermined?
would say that people don't have free will if that was the
yeah,
case.
according to their own admissions, people don't have free will. I mean, that's the whole thing that Loki bumps up against is if I do this, if I take over the world, it's because I did it, not because you guys allowed me to it. And they're basically telling him, no, it's
No.
because we allowed you to do it because you're sticking to the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
So whoever the head, I forget what they called them now. The three
The timekeepers.
cosmic beings, the timekeepers. I thought they had another name too. Anyway, the three cosmic beings, the timekeepers that decided on this timeline, like that. I need to preface what I'm about to say with the fact that I really, really like the show. Maybe even love the show. I love Tom Hiddleston. Obviously,
I love it.
he's amazing. Um, the one thing I kept bumping up against in this particular episode was the overwhelming, I don't even know what the right word is, the overwhelming power that the timekeepers have, or that the TVA
Mhm.
has over the Marvel universe. I mean, when things like the Infinity Stones, who we just spent 22 movies watching wreak havoc in some way or another on the MCU as a whole, we saw Thanos, wipe out half of existence with them. When they are reduced to paperweights by this organization, and they look at them as trinkets, and when you have this entity, these timekeepers who have decided that, who are basically determining, who have decided with the way everything's going to work and the way everything's going to go, it takes away from the, um I don't know, it takes away from like
Lessens it.
it lessens Tony's sacrifice at the end of Endgame, because that was just what had to happen. Like, Tony didn't get to decide that he was going to give his life to save the universe, because if he had to have decided that, and the timekeepers had decided, well, that's the way it has to go, then they would have taken him back and redone it until he did it right, or chosen the timeline in which he did do it. And so it, like I said, it to me, it in a way steps on what came before and lessens it to a certain extent. Now, Disney's smart, Kevin Feige's smart. I don't think that this is going to hold up in this manner or fashion. I think the timekeepers may end up being less of a altruistic beings and more of an issue to be dealt with later on. And so I think that will, that some of what they're saying may be a little bluster too, that maybe they're not as influential as they want people to believe. And so I kind of, in my heart of hearts, I hope that we find out that what they're telling Loki, at least from the jump here, is not true, just because of the impact that it has on what came before, up to this point. So that's the only thing that for this particular episode, that I kept bumping up against, was just the overwhelming power that this organization entities have.
They're like all powerful. I mean, like,
They are.
over everything.
I mean, as Loki said,
Everything.
the TVA is formidable. That's what
Yeah.
Loki said. Like, but
It's not wrong.
here's one thing though, that because kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, to where this might not be how it is going forward. If we refer back to when we talked about this on the show, maybe during like WandaVision times, can't remember, because there was like confusion out there, because WandaVision's supposed to tie in with Spider-Man, and then that's supposed to tie in with Doctor Strange. But then I went out and found that article that Kevin Feige actually stated, because there's for some reason there's a lot of confusion out there, because he didn't just say WandaVision and Spider-Man tie into it. Kevin Feige was quoted saying that WandaVision, Spider-Man, and Loki all lead into Multiverse of Madness in some way. So what you're saying, John, is my theory here is that, I mean, given at the end of like the first episode, which we'll get into in a minute, but I think Loki, this series, in the TVA and the Timekeepers and stuff, I think they're gonna be destroyed at the end, and that's gonna be a plot point of Multiverse of Madness. Because if you remember the Miss Minutes thing, they literally say that, like, before the Timekeepers came in, the multiverse was in chaos and uncontrolled, and there was a multiverse of war, because like all these things were different.
Universes were at war,
Yeah, because then so the Timekeepers came in and made one single timeline. So, and like that's what it is. Anytime something that happens that is not in that timeline that they've constructed, they go and they delete it. So there's one sacred timeline now, as opposed to all these different ones that even the Sorcerer Supreme in Endgame told Bruce Banner, like the split dimension. If those two things the crystals don't get brought back to her world, you know what I mean? So my theory, and given the fact that the reveal at the end that the variant that is going around killing everybody is Loki, which I don't think is true, it makes sense. Like, it makes sense that at the end of this series, the timekeepers or the sacred timeline itself will be destroyed, and it's gonna I mean, that alone would create a multiverse of madness, like, by itself.
Sure.
Like,
It would unspool it back into the multiverse. I also hope that we also find out that they decided that this timeline, that whatever timeline they're currently in, came about after the events of what we had watched up through Endgame, and hopefully even like right up to the beginning of this show is kind of the impetus for the beginning of this sacred timeline. Just because, like I said, if everything was all in promoting or keeping the sacred timeline intact, then nothing anybody did was their choice, and it
Right.
just it reduces the the impact of all those choices, sacrifices, and not just sacrifices, but decisions, the heroic acts, anything that
Everything.
happened, even the bad acts, like even Loki being a terrible person and ripping out that guy's eyeball to get into in the Avengers film didn't matter. It's not that big a deal because it's all
Well,
part of the sacred timeline and
technically,
pushed
though,
the timeline forward the way it needed to happen.
right? I know what you're saying, but technically, though, they still chose to do that. It's whenever something happens outside of that, it gets deleted. So like Loki and
But if
everyone still
exactly, but
had
if
free will. It's just that if something happens to make that, because like that dude was literally late for work. Like that's all it
sure.
was. Like the guy who got disintegrated in front of Loki, he was just late for work, and he was a Nexus event, and they fucking deleted it.
Right.
Like you know what I mean?
Or
Sure,
reset him or whatever.
But I guess what
Right.
I'm saying is like to take it back to comic books and kind of where multiverse for me I came into my life was, the DC comic had their prime universe, like their universe where all the DC stories happened. And then in the 60s you got Earth 2, which featured the Golden Age heroes, and the Flash crossed over and met Jay Garrick and Flash of Earth 2, and then you start having the JSA and JLA team ups and stuff. But the main DC continuity was that Earth Prime that you always followed up until, Crisis on Infinite Earths when they merged everything. And while I understand what you're saying about people make their own decisions, in the universe that we were watching, in the Marvel's MCU Prime universe that we have been a part of for the past decade, the characters made choices and stuff that, obviously they made, and that added to the characters' characterization, for lack of a better way to put it.
Mhm.
And so Loki came off as a very conflicted character because he would do awful things, but then you also got to see, him really feel like he had no choice but to do these awful things. What I'm saying though is if there aren't other worlds in which Loki makes different choices, if this is the only choice he can make, it takes away from the importance of that choice, because all these other versions of him that may have made different choices don't exist anymore because they're keeping just this one intact.
Yeah,
And
which is
so
true
it's
too,
it's
because it's like
being
they're not giving people a chance to do
exactly
anything else.
No, it's just
Like
what they
Exactly.
literally.
determine.
So yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, for sure. So it's like a mixture of both, in my opinion, because like it's not because like that's just going back to what I said. There's like this debate on whether it's like predestination or just foreknowledge for the most part. Like just like do the timekeepers just know what's going to happen, or do they determine what's going to happen? And it's both. It's not just one, because they determined that there's only going to be one timeline, and that's what we're going to stick to. They didn't make Loki make all those choices. He had free will to make all his choices. But at any point in time where he doesn't make a choice that is on the sacred timeline, it gets deleted. So that's where the predestination part kicks in, because it's been predetermined by the timekeepers that there's one timeline. So if Loki doesn't make
a
that
timeline
choice, it's
a
gonna get
timeline
deleted.
that it's a
Yeah,
timeline that they chose though too, which is
exactly.
they're obviously, everybody has a choice in everything you do. Like I get to choose what I have for breakfast tomorrow morning when I wake up. But if some entity out there has already determined they want me to have Captain Crunch, then
Mhm.
I really, that choice is no longer my choice.
Yeah,
Even though there's timelines where I might
You
choose differently, I
you
might
think it's your
choose to get a
choice.
cinnamon roll.
yeah,
It is no longer your choice if someone else has already chosen that for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Takes away the idea of like free will and
Yeah, because it's like
Sure.
they still can choose that, but it's like we said, like that one dude was literally just late for work, and like
How is that like? It could have been something totally out of his control. Like,
yeah, but after all the times in the sacred timeline that he was never late for work, so like right
Yeah.
there, it's a Nexus event, so they deleted
all right,
him.
I'm gonna double think all this stuff now. Like, if I'm running a little late to work and stuff.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like so far, everything you've done, at least to your knowledge, has been a part of the sacred timeline.
To my
So
knowledge.
yeah,
But that's the crazy thing just about life in general, is all the little nuances and stuff, like the day you get up and you get out of bed 10 minutes late to go to work, and you're driving on to work and you run up on an accident, you come up on an accident that happened 10 minutes earlier. If you had been on time that day, you would have been in the middle of that accident. It's just all those little nuances that were just kind of can drive you mad sometimes.
Oh yeah, for
Right.
sure. So my main thing here too, to kind of wrap it up, because I think we covered most of everything anyway. Like we all love it. The one thing that I was telling Rick when it was this was also too, I will add, out of all the other Marvel shows, this is the only one that I actually wanted to like go back and rewatch the episode just because I liked it so much.
Yeah, we
Like 'cause
watched
I
it
loved
last
WandaVision.
night. That
Yeah,
was your second time.
that was my second time watching it, and I would watch it again. Like if Sarah wanted to watch it, I'd watch it. Like, I wouldn't care. It's
It's
great.
entertaining.
I
It's
love
good.
it. It's good. But like with WandaVision, I never felt like I needed to go back and rewatch it. Like
I never felt that way with WandaVision. Yeah.
yeah, it was Falcon Winter Soldier. I watched it once. Like I never wanted to go back and watch it. Like I would. I would. It's not like I'm against
Watched
it.
them all. I watched them all twice. I don't know.
Yeah, I never felt the
I'm a
need to.
sucker.
Yeah. I mean, I did
Yeah.
watch a couple episodes of WandaVision. I watched everything up to the season finale a second time because I watched it with Sarah. But like she never wasn't really too much into it, so she never even watched the finale when it came out. So I've watched
Yeah.
everything but the finale twice of that. But with Loki, like I genuinely, I was just like, man, I just want to watch that again. It was good, and there was something I picked up in it that I didn't see before. A couple things. One, I noticed the dude who was in the room who made him sign his papers and everything for everything that he said. It shows a shot from like behind him, and you can see one of his monitors, and on those like little analog green screens, he was playing solitaire on it. Like I thought that was kind of funny. And then there was something else that I completely forget what it was though that I did not catch the first time. It was nothing like important or like Mephisto kind of things by any means. But that was hilarious though in the beginning because when they showed that devil thing up on the wall and the stained glass and the little girl's like points at it, it's just like Mephisto.
Yeah, that's like what I said
like,
literally when we watched it.
It's almost like they knew.
Oh yeah.
It's like they knew like this Mephisto thing's gonna go out of control. So, but it obviously fit in just because it's the Loki horns. Which brings me to my point, though, is at the end you get the reveal from Owen Wilson that the variant that's going around killing everybody in the TVA is Loki, and that's why he's wanting Loki's help. My thing is, though, if that were true, why didn't at the end when it shows the other squad of the TVA people getting killed, why didn't we see the guy's face who killed them?
Right.
If we were just told it was Loki, why hide his face?
Yeah.
Like, so I
No,
don't
that's a good
think
point.
it's
They're
Loki.
hiding something.
Yeah, I don't think it's Loki, and I thought maybe, and this was another crazy kind of theory I had, is in the comics there's Lady Loki, right? And then on the paper that shows like his bio that he's like holding or like in the courtroom scene or somebody's holding it, it shows like name Laufey Laufeyson, blah blah blah, and then Rick pointed out that it said gender fluid. So my thought was like, well, since they put gender fluid on there, maybe this variant is Lady Loki as opposed to him, Tom Hiddleston Loki. Because at no point has Loki ever been described in the MCU as being gender fluid,
Right.
like in any way, shape, or form. He's just there's been no indication that he wasn't, but there's been no indication that it was. So it's kind of odd for them just to actually have that notated there. Unless it was a little Easter egg to maybe this variant that is going around killing people is in fact Lady Loki. So it's Loki, but not. You know what I mean? Like maybe?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's really the only question is if it's not Loki, then who the hell is it and why would they want Loki's help? That's the only other like I don't have an
Yeah.
answer for that. But I'm curious to see.
Yeah, this is not really on, but one of the things I was kind of looking forward to or wondering about this series was because we were getting a Loki that was from the end of Avengers, and thus, our Loki, for lack of a better way to put it, that we had watched through Thor: The Dark World up through Endgame or I guess Infinity War, was dead and gone, how they were going to account for that. Because Loki at the end of Avengers is very much the vengeful god that wants his throne. And it was interesting to see them do all those flashes and get him more to the Loki that everybody came to love and like in
Yeah.
Infinity War. That was a little more. He was still, the god of mischief, but he was more on the side of the angels, I guess is a way to put it. And they did that through that kind of look at his future and what would have happened to him had he not been pulled from the time stream. So
It was like a
that was
natural way for them to get him all of his character development that he has up until he dies. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It was a very just like, you watch all this stuff, you get up to speed, and then which was also kind of neat because you realize too that he was always that Loki at the end.
Yeah.
And he was just it's like his I forget what his exact line is, but he's like, it's the weak to
Weak acting
yeah.
strength to make himself seem more powerful or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's like he was always the end game Loki that we knew. It's just what he had to do to create this illusion of control. Rick Metz just subscribed.
That's my dad.
Look at that.
Welcome to the party,
Yeah,
pal.
welcome to the party, Rick.
Awesome.
But yes, I thought that was really good though. And it also works on just a more basic level of like now we're watching the Loki that we've come to love. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, it's like it worked both ways from what I thought. So
Yeah.
but I'm stoked. Like I said, I've heard that not season 2, but episode 2 is even better than episode 1, which is great. I always like to hear that. And then apparently they go more into like how they like with the those little like reset things they put on the ground and then it like resets the thing. They go into like more of what happens with that and like they explain the devices more and explain more of how the TV actually
The
functions.
charges. As they're
Yeah, so
called, yeah.
I'm it'll probably answer a lot of questions that a lot of people have just in season just not I keep saying season 2, but episode 2 alone. So I can't wait. I'm honestly after seeing how good this one was though, I'm kinda bummed this one's only 6 episodes, like, of all of them. Like, why couldn't this one have been the 9-episode one? But
Yeah.
good one thing to note, though, too, is that it was, like, a 55 or 57-minute episode, so definitely longer than any other ones, so of the other 2 series. So I hope it keeps that same length because it felt real good for me. It was a really nice length of an episode, had everything I needed in it. It was great, so
Right.
looking forward to it. The question is though, guys, what did you think about Loki? Were you, was it one that you were even looking forward to? Because I know, like I said, when this show first got announced, I was gonna watch it, obviously, but it was like, it's Loki, whatever. I'm not like super stoked for it. But then I saw that trailer, and I was like, damn, that's the one I want to watch now. And then it did not disappoint, like at all. So let us know what you guys thought of Loki episode 1 down in the comment section below.